Toggling annotation about its origin. Having selected the justification tool, indicate the point whose annotation needs to be moved. Then move the mouse so that the annotation moves into the correct quadrant, and then click again to place it down. Using the parallel auto setting for aligning level text, where annotation is already aligned parallel to a feature via the code table, rather than having to manually move levels that poke out round corners. Change to the auto parallel mode so n4ce does this for you and automatically moves the text along to align with the following segment. Corner auto merge. As long as the walls meet at approximately 90 degrees, plus or minus the tolerance, this option can merge all the appropriate walls to generate the corners of a building in one operation. Reassigning numbers to setting out data. Extracting the coordinates of the blocks that represent piles has always been straightforward. But what if the ID of the pile is also important to preserve the continuity of what is being set out? Here we can reassign the Cadd identities of the piles as the point ID back onto the points that represents their centers. You can choose on using the origin of the text or the closest part of its border to decide which ID goes to which point. Enabling the plotting of the number shows them on screen so we can conduct a quick visual check. Regenerating 3D contours from 2D line work. The Points from Contours tool allows us to strike a line through 2D Cadd lines, then define their start and end levels by clicking on the appropriate number. This way, large 2D contour drawings can be brought back to being 3D very quickly and easily. Once the line has been struck and the start and end levels identified, n4ce will report what it thinks the interval is. Assuming this value is correct, press Yes, and then new 3D line work will be added to the model. As-built surveys from closest point. This function compares the points in two models to then calculate their differences in position. Here we will check some set-out points versus their required locations defined in a design model. Having selected the closest point comparison option, identify the model to check it against, then the tolerance to use, and which dimensions should be calculated. A text report is initially displayed, but the differences in position has also been assigned to the points as attributes. They can then be plotted on the drawing via the %dx% and %dy% text macros. Auto-grade, between known levels on line work. In this situation, a center line for an access road has been provided with only a few levels in key places. The Grade Infill tool automatically linearly grades between the points with known levels to assign levels to the points in between that do not currently have a level. Generate 3D points from a Cadd table. The table can be imported from a DWG or PDF. Simply use the Points from Table tool to identify the data that is in each column, then rectangle select the columns to use. Give the points an appropriate code, and n4ce will add them to the current model. Generate 3D steps from 4 points. Having digitized the bottom left, bottom right, and top left extents of the steps, measure the width of a single step. Now use the Steps from 4 Points tool to create the 3D line work for the appropriate number of steps. If needed, then the line work can then be trimmed to fit any containing features. and pulled back 1 millimeter to allow them to be modeled in a DTM. Autopan in the 2D view. When digitizing long linear features in the 2D view from aerial imagery, having to manually pan the screen to get into position when digitizing can be tedious. So this can be done for you instead, via the Autopan option. When enabled, the screen will be moved on with each new point by the direction and distance from the previous point. Plotting images on a drawing. Images can be attached to the points via the data loggers at survey time, or manually after the survey has been imported. Enabling the Photographs option highlights those points with images attached. With hovering enabled on the left, these images can be displayed to help make informed decisions when detailing the survey. These images can also be placed on the drawing, with a leader arrow to depict which points go with which image. After selecting the Image Place tool, indicate the point whose image you want to plot, then where and how large it should be. Leaders to points of interest. The Leader tool draws an arrow from any annotation type or attribute to its parent point. First, add the necessary points to the list, change the pick mode to List, then select the type of annotation on those points to be detailed. The option Closest Point tells n4ce to use the closest part of the text to start the arrow from, rather than being at its insertion point, which is generally the bottom left of the text. Then clear the list and carry on.